Hey, everybody, welcome back to the channel that takes you deep inside the San Francisco 49ers. I am your host, Jack Hammer. It is time. It is showtime. The 49ers getting ready to kick off their 2023 season against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kickoff just a little over an hour away. Thought it was a good time to come on, give you my keys to 49ers victory today. It looks like we have a bunch of folks over in the comment section. That's going to be fantastic. Let's make sure this is an interactive discussion. I'll go through my keys. I'll check the comment section every once in a while to make sure that I don't miss anything, but I'd love to hear all of your questions. We'll get those answered to the best that we can. We'll get this thing rolling. Want to shout out a member of the big Notorious Gav. He's a member of the channel here. Thank you very much, Gav. Good to have you on board. He says, best juiced ever. Competition makes the team better. Let's go 44. He's excited about the 49ers tight end today. We have the Gabe Stiver show. Says the 49ers will win 35-3. Christian McCaffrey close it out for a touchdown, 7-yard touchdown handoff from Purdy. Good stuff there. There we go. We got some eggs and bacon with some football. Let's go, baby, from 49ers Empire. Absolutely. Big hit from Raphael 5629ers, another member of the Toolbox. That's why he's got that little dollar sign next to his name. Says, good morning, Jack, members of the Toolbox and everyone. He also wants to make sure everybody likes and subscribes. Thanks, Raphael. Good to see you. Lucas, good to see you also. Lucas, another member of the Toolbox, says, let's go. I am so excited. I am too. This is exciting. Week one, one of the best times to get this thing going. We have football for the next 18 weeks. We are guaranteed 49ers football for the next 18 weeks. Beyond that, we'll see how this season plays out. Luke Walsh says, go Niners, another member of the Toolbox. Randall, Brother Bob, and I have receipts for all those picking the Pittsburgh Steelers. According to Randall, he says it's going to be 27-6 49ers. We'll see. John Shoup in the house says, let's go PD crew. Hey, John, good to have you on board. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, you guys are starting to roll through. Casey Cook says, kickoff can't get here fast enough. So there you go. I am looking forward to it. And then also I want to shout out Randall again. He says, thank you, Jack, for your show with Kruger. Yesterday was refreshing. Most shows are so negative with no context. You bring it real. Appreciated. Yeah, I don't understand. If there's people that are out there negative on the 49ers right now, I don't get it. The 49ers have the best roster in the NFL. I think the best roster in the NFC. If they're not the best, it's second best right there with the Philadelphia Eagles. Those are the two best teams in this conference. They just re-signed the defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa, to a mega deal. Nick Bosa only going to count $46 million against the cap for the next 3 years. Wild numbers there. And then on top of that, you look at where the 49ers are currently. They are now, not only do they have one of the best, if not the best roster in the NFL, the 49ers have the most salary cap space in the NFL, $41.5 million. There's no other team can spend as much money as the 49ers if they want to go get somebody. Now, I don't think they're going to do that, but having that space allows you the possibility. I think that money, when you start to look at where the 49ers roster is, you got Talanoa Hufanga that needs to get a new deal. I think in this offseason, Brandon Ayuk needs to get a new deal this offseason. There's a lot of guys that need to get paid that they've developed themselves, and that's a good problem to have. All the talk that we hear about how the 49ers have screwed this roster up from different areas because of not having draft picks, all these different things, forget it. This is an amazing roster, very good, solid starters, good depth pieces. Their depth is so good that when we look at their inactive players today, you have some of their better players not even being able to be active. Some guys who actually I felt like had a very good training camp, very good offseason. You know, you look at it, the 49ers and actives for today. Well, Brandon Allen, Nick Zakelj. I think Nick Zakelj, he made this roster because they knew that he was going to end up somewhere else. Kalia Davis, I think, is a very solid interior defensive tackle. He was inactive. He's inactive today. Ty Davis Price, no surprise with Ty Davis Price. He was inactive last year anytime they had three other backs that were healthy. So no Ty Davis Price today. And then you get to the three rookies, D. Winters, Jalen Graham, Braden Willis. Those are three guys who had a very good preseasons, very good training camps for the 49ers, making this roster. And again, that shows the depth here in San Francisco because you have, D. Winters, no D. Winters, no Jalen Graham, but instead you have Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, two of the best linebackers in the NFL. Oren Burks, really solid NFL level linebacker, along with Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, another guy who is a very solid NFL caliber linebacker. So they have, that's four deep right there. And then you go to a fifth, Curtis Robinson. The 49ers yesterday elevated Curtis Robinson off of their practice squad. So that's your linebacker crew today. Solid stuff all around the board. Tight end, they go ahead, they sit Braden Willis down here to start off with. It's going to be George Kittle, Charlie Woerner, Ross Dwelley. I like the Kittle. I like the Dwelley. The Woerner, we'll see. Werner's the one who last year, he only had 2 targets come his way. Both times he dropped it. So let's see what happens if they try to throw the ball at him today. He's been okay in training camp, not as bad as he was during the regular season last year. So we'll see how that goes. But George Kittle, Ross Dwelley, the best hands on the team. So we'll see how this all plays out. I think I would like to see, as Gav was talking about with Kyle Juszczyk having a big season, I think the 49ers should really utilize Kyle Juszczyk a lot more because of his ability to catch, his ability to do multiple different things. But again, this is a roster that, I don't know. I don't know, man. The negativity that hey, I said it with Larry a couple weeks ago. Negativity sells. Negativity draws eyeballs to your channel. So that's how some people get it done. I prefer to be a little bit more realistic. And when the team, there's talk a lot. I joke around on this channel a lot about having to hold people accountable because that's what people like. That seems to just be this key phrase that people throw out there to try to come on and rip on people. Well, let's be real. Holding people accountable is that when people aren't performing, that's when you hold them accountable. The 49ers haven't been at a spot yet this season where they haven't performed. They've done everything this offseason that you wanted them to do, except for keep a certain quarterback. But other than that, for some people, but other than that, they've done a really nice job. I think this is a solid roster. Looking forward to seeing how this game plays out. Now, let's get into where I think this game's going to go today. You look at this game, the 49ers coming out to Pittsburgh. This is actually going to be the 23rd time that these two teams have met. They've played 22 times previously. The 49ers hold the advantage over the Steelers. They are 12-10 over the Steelers, including 6-5 when they've taken on the Steelers out in Pittsburgh. So the 49ers have actually done pretty well out there overall. But I think when you look back, people remember the last time the 49ers were out in Pittsburgh was 2015. But this isn't that 2015 team anymore. That 2015 team led by Jim Tomsula and a bunch of hooligans out there compared to Pittsburgh, who at the time was one of the better teams in the NFC or in the NFL, excuse me. They just got blitzed. And then, you look the last time these two teams met back in 2019, the 49ers were able to pull that game out at Levi Stadium by a score of 24-20, despite a number of turnovers and just a game in which the offense moved the ball really well, but kept shooting themselves in the foot and turning the ball over. But they were still able to come back, still able to pull that game out. This is different in a little bit because it's the season opener. And when you look at the season opener for the Pittsburgh Steelers under head coach Mike Tomlin, they have been very good. They haven't played very many games at home week one, have the Steelers. They've only played 5 times at home under Mike Tomlin, who's been there for 16 years, going on his 17th season. Mike Tomlin with the Pittsburgh Steelers week one at home is 4-1. He's 10-5-1 overall. So they're a very tough team when you look at the week one for the Steelers. On the other side, you have the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan. This is now going to be their 5th road opener in 7 seasons. So you look at Kyle Shanahan's tenure with the 49ers, 2017 and 2020, the only times that the 49ers opened at home. The rest of them on the road. This will be the 5th time. They're 2-2 in those previous 4 road games to open the season. The one thing that I will point out is that Shanahan's offense has really struggled in week one, averaging just 16.7 points per game. You look at that 16.7, and that includes big numbers in the game against the Detroit Lions just 2 years ago. So let's back that up a little bit. Let's look at this as we start to break down these 5 keys. That first key that I have, and I think it's important, especially when you look at that 16.7 average, is the quarterback position. So my first key to the game, my first question for this game is, can Brock Purdy handle the pressure? And I'm saying pressure in a couple of different ways. One, he's going to be facing a really raucous crowd in Pittsburgh. Week one, people are going to be excited. It's going to be jacked up. Can he handle that? I think so, because he's been in these situations before. As we know, with Iowa State, did it, went into Oklahoma, went into all these different places in the Big 12 last season, had a big road game to get the NFC West up in Seattle, went on the road, opened up good against Philadelphia for the first 5 plays. The 6th play was not so good. So I think he's going to be fine from the standpoint of the pressure from the outside. So what we need to look at is what can Brock Purdy handle in terms of dealing with the pressure. And you look at Purdy's numbers last season during his run at the end of the year where he was outstanding. One of the things where he was really good was his ability to beat pressure. Brock Purdy against pressure last season had a passer rating of 88.6. Now it was 115.5, 115.3 when he was clean, but 88.6 when pressured. However, when you dig a little deeper, I know that number might not sound good, but 88.6 passer rating was the 3rd best in the NFL last season among quarterbacks when dealing with pressure. So that's a nice number for Brock Purdy. That's something that we're going to see today. And then, I think you look at it, the 49ers are going to need Purdy to continue that level of play against the Steelers today. And the Steelers particularly have one of the best pass rushing units in the NFL, led by TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith coming off the edges, defensive tackle Cameron Hayward, who's going to be really lined up most of today over Aaron Banks. That's going to be a big matchup. Everybody's so focused on Colton McKivitz, and we're going to get there in a minute. But there's other Trent Williams on Alex Highsmith, Cameron Hayward on against Aaron Banks. This is a tough, and sometimes Hayward might even be a little bit more inside and have to deal with Jake Brendel. So this is a very, very tough 40 front that the 49ers are going to be facing today. There should be a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy. You look at it, Pittsburgh's defense. Remember the old Blitzburg Steelers, because of how often they used to blitz back in the day? Well, they've backed off of that a little bit the last couple of years, relying more on 4-man pass rush to generate pressure. Something you can do when you have guys like Watt and Highsmith and Hayward getting after it, which allows you to play a little bit more coverage behind it, makes it tougher for the quarterbacks to beat you over the top. And we'll see. That could be a good thing today for the 49ers going up against the Steelers. Well, Purdy was good when pressured. He was even better last year against the blitz with a passer rating of 97.1. So let's see how this all plays out. I think one of the biggest things in this game today, when it comes to Brock Purdy handling this pressure, he can help out his offensive linemen. We spent all off season with this debate about dinking and dunking, and is Brock Purdy a dink and dunk passer and all that kind of stuff. Well, first off, I think we've already debunked the fact that this whole notion that he's a dinker and dunker. He's not. He'll take the deep shots when they're there. However, I think in today's game, when you look at the pass rush, I think it's very similar to last season against the Philadelphia Eagles. I would like to see the 49ers come out and actually work that underneath passing game, work underneath, get the ball out quickly to Christian McCaffrey, get it out quickly to George Kittle, who is playing today, get it out quickly to Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Let those guys work. Let those guys make the plays. Slow that pass rush down by getting the ball out quick, throwing it underneath. That can help neutralize that pass rush. And then once you kind of get them off balance a little bit, especially if you can get that run game going, well, then that's when you take the shot over. I'd like to see them hold off on that. That's one of the things I didn't like about the game plan out in Philly. I thought they got a little impatient and tried to go deep a little bit too quick. So Randall coming in with a really good fact that I did not include that I should have. He says, aren't the 49ers second best record away in the past 5 years or something like that? Yes. So I believe it's from 2019 on. The 49ers have are tied for the second most victories on the road since then. Let me look at my notes really quick. I've got them right here. It is, so since 2019, the Chiefs have 27 road victories. The 49ers and the Bills are tied for second with 23. So the 49ers are a good road team. They've been very good on the road. That's really a sign that shows about, I think that talks about that speaks to how good their defense has been, that they've been able to win on the road. You have defense travels well usually. And then when you run the ball, running the ball and keeping the ball away from the home team has a tendency to kind of drown out that crowd noise, get those fans out of the game a little bit. And that's one of the things the 49ers have done a really good job of this offseason. So, under Kyle Shanahan over these last 4 years. So that's, the quarterback position, again, get the ball out quick, get it out underneath, Gav pointing out using 21 personnel. Again, I agree with that. Get Kyle Juszczyk in the game. Let him really be your second tight end in a lot of ways, be that move fullback that he can be. So I like that. And I think, again, when you look at Brock Purdy, get the ball out quick, get it to your playmakers, let them make plays, negate that pass rush and help your guys out? Because that's the second question that I have. The second key is Colt McKivitz keeping TJ Watt off the quarterback. And it's not even just TJ Watt. It's again, I went through the whole offensive line and what they're going to be facing today. I think when you look at Colt McKivitz, there's nothing quite like coming in and making your first start as the full-time starter against TJ Watt, right? I mean, you can't really ask for a tougher assignment week one when you're of your first full NFL season. But this isn't a situation that's all that different for Colt McKivitz. He's been in this position before. He's made 2 starts in the NFL at left tackle, so it's not like he's a rookie. It's not like he hasn't been on the field before. He's made a couple of starts, and he's made a couple of other starts along the interior. He played guard during his rookie season. But when you look at Colt McKivitz, you look at his first career NFL start, week 17 of the 2021 season against the Rams, actually week 18, the season finale down there. The 49ers in a must-win situation. Trent Williams goes down. Colt McKivitz is going to have to start at left tackle. The right tackle for the 49ers is already Tom Compton. That news breaks like 90 minutes before the game, and everybody pretty much thinks, man, this is going to be it was a good season. I guess we'll just have to pack it up now. Instead, they go out, they beat the Rams, they get into the playoffs, play through, to the point where Trent Williams, after the season, even commented that if he felt like it probably would have been better to have Colt McKivitz play in that NFC Championship game against the Rams than himself because of the limitations that the ankle injury put on him in that 2021 NFC Championship game. So McKivitz has been here before. He's done well. We know that he's going to struggle. Just right now, know that there are going to be times where Colt McKivitz, he is going to get beat today. At some point, Colt McKivitz is going to get beat. Just it's it's there. It's going to happen. He's not going to be perfect. He's going to get beat. And despite that, let's see how this game plays out, because I do think he's looked good. I thought he's looked solid throughout training camp. He hasn't had very many snaps in the preseason, so we haven't really seen much of him in the preseason games, but he's looked pretty good during training camp. He's looked solid. He hasn't had to go up against Nick Bosa. I think that that would have been good for him to have to get some work in against Bosa before facing Watt, but that didn't happen. But when you watch, at least when I watched McKivitz this year in camp, he just looked really good with his feet. He looked like he had a much better base. He was much quicker, it seemed like. His hand placement was good. He wasn't really getting beat around the edge too many times. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing how Colt McKivitz handles TJ Watt today. Watt's coming off a season last year where he just had 5.5 sacks. He was injured, so don't let those numbers fool you. He was an injury plagued year last year for Watt. But you look at his last 4 seasons, he's had 65 sacks, including 22.5 in 2021. So that's the 4 seasons before last year. So, Watt is a troublemaker on that Steelers defense. And we talked about the other guys, right? Trent Williams and Alex Highsmith. Highsmith with 14.5 sacks last year. Aaron Banks and Cameron Hayward. Hayward with 10.5 sacks last year. So this offensive line is going to be tested when it comes to that passing game. And again, I think this is where Kyle Shanahan needs to be smart, needs to turn the ball over to Brock Purdy, let him get the ball out of his hands quick, do that stuff like what we saw in the preseason, right? If you look at the 3 preseason games for the 49ers out in Vegas, they came out and they tried to go quick with Trey Lance right off the bat, tried quick throws. They came back the next week with Brock Purdy making his start, and he did boom, 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 did it right, did a good job there. And then in the final preseason game, again, it's quick stuff, getting the ball out quick, moving it down the field, play action, sliding out of the pocket, making plays. So I think that they're in a good spot with Purdy to help this offense out. It's just a matter of the head coach being patient with his play calling. I think if he is patient with his play calling today, they can move the ball on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just have to not try to be overly aggressive, allow the game to come to them, so to speak. And then the other part of it that really plays into this is I think that one of the areas the 49ers really have an advantage today is working against the Steelers linebackers. So that leads me to my third key. Can the 49ers offensive line generate push in the running game? Because you look at it, and I do think the linebacking level for the defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers is a weakness. The problem is, can the 49ers get to those guys? Can they get their backs on those linebackers? They can be able to do it a little bit in the passing game, but in the running game, it's a matter of being able to get to that second level. And you look at this defensive line for the Steelers, they're solid against the run. They're solid in the middle, especially with Cam Hayward. He's just a big dude that makes it really hard to move. And the 49ers offensive line has struggled with moving the defense during training camp in the preseason, watching them, facing the Raiders defense out in Las Vegas, watching them play against their own team, their own group here. That push just hasn't really been there from the offensive line. So that's one of the biggest things I think today. I know we're all focused on the pass protection. The other thing I'm going to look at is how can they get the Steelers defense moving? Can they get those guys off the ball? Because if they can do that and they can get the running game going up into that second level, they're going to have success. But that's where it's going to be difficult. The Steelers were really good against the run last year. They allowed just 4.1 yards per attempt. They also allowed a league low 7 rushing touchdowns a year ago. So again, that run defense got to put a lot of pressure on the 49ers to be able to throw the ball. That's why I think, again, Brock Purdy today, I think in some ways the 49ers should be utilizing Purdy and the quick passing game to set up as their running attack. Get the ball out quick on the screens, get the ball out to on the quick slants, those types of things. Just get the ball out to your playmakers, let them run with the ball instead of trying to just beat yourself up against the wall. Once you get that defense maybe a little bit tired out, then you can come up and start running them. Once you get them running sideline to sideline, tire them out a little bit, and now maybe you can get up inside. So we'll see the direction that Kyle Shanahan wants to take this today. That's the way that I would go about it if you were asking me. Just kind of checking over here really quick. You guys are really good in the comment section. We have 124 people in the house right now. If you guys can do me a favor, hit that like button. I always forget to remind you guys, but Raphael, he's probably watching right now. He's probably saying, Jack, make sure you remind everybody to go in there and hit that like button. So if you guys could, please hit that like button for me. So we are through the offensive stuff. Now let's get over to some of what I think is going to be key for the 49ers defense today. Number one, can they step up against the run? And this has been a question. We haven't really seen the 49ers starting defense much this year. They hardly played in the preseason at all. And when they did against the Chargers in that final preseason game, they looked really good, but they were going up against the Chargers backups. So that was hard to tell really how good they are. They didn't look good to me when they went up against the Raiders out in Las Vegas during the joint practice sessions. The Raiders pushed them around quite a bit up front. You look at this game, Pittsburgh has 3 really good running backs led by Najee Harris, local guy to the Bay Area out of Antioch, was Antioch High School, top recruits in the nation, going to Alabama. Now he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's a really solid, between the tackles type of back. And I think that's the kind of thing that can take advantage of San Francisco's defensive line, especially if they're unable to hold up at the point of attack. And the reason I say that is because the 49ers linebackers, this 49ers defense as a whole is really good at chasing people down. This is a very fast defense that the 49ers have. But sometimes they have a tendency to be able to get pushed off the ball. When they get pushed off the ball, what happens there is your linebackers, who are really fast, they get guys around them and they can't get to the ball because the offensive line is on them too quickly. So can this defensive front hold the point of attack, and allow Warner and Greenlaw and Warren Burks and that linebacker crew to get to the ball to make the tackles? And you look at this game for me, on top of that, you have Jaylen Warren, Anthony McFarland, a couple of quicker backs who can really stretch the defense and get to the edge. Now, like I just said, I don't think that's going to be something that really hurts the 49ers. I think teams that run laterally don't give them as much problems as teams that try to run between the tackles on them. They can attack a little horizontally, but it's still in between the tackles. It's not just pound it right up the middle. But off tackle plays and things like that, those can work too. And I just feel with Najee Harris, this could be a little bit of a problem spot for the Niners. You look at it, and they just really need to not allow Pittsburgh to get their running game on track. One of the things that we've seen is that the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan in particular, has a tendency to get impatient when the opponents are able to control the ball. Like last year, in 2 of the 49ers' 4 losses, we saw this happen. At Denver, at Atlanta, both those games, the opponent was able to continue to run the ball. The offense wasn't performing. That was a big part of it. And so with the 49ers offense not putting pressure on the opponent was able just to continue to play the running game, work it out. drain that clock, take plays away from the 49ers offense. And I think then what happens is that Kyle Shanahan, like I said, he'll get impatient, tries to get a little too aggressive at times. And that's usually when the 49ers struggle. So in this game, they got to take this run away from them. They got to, and part of taking the run away is going to be their ability on offense to move the ball as well. So again, stopping the run being a big piece here for the 49ers. And then last but not least, can this 49ers pass rush get to Kenny Pickett? All the talk around the Steelers this offseason has been the improvement of Pickett. Second-year quarterback was nails during the preseason. He had 5 possessions, I believe it was, 5 touchdowns. That's just different. Just a different situation, though, right? They're not necessarily playing against the starters. They're not playing against the best opposition. Who knows how those matchups work? But they were very good, and he was very good. Now, and that's where this pass rush of the 49ers needs to come in, because I talked about how good Brock Purdy was last year when pressured, how good Brock Purdy was last year when he was blitzed. It's the opposite for Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett last year, he was just 62.4 on the passer rating when he had pressure around him. That was 72.4 against the blitz. Neither one of those are good numbers. 62.4, not a good number at all when you're getting pressured. And if the 49ers can generate pressure today, if Nick Bosa can get upfield, if Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave can get upfield, I think that this really plays into the 49ers' favor. Again, you slow down the run, make Kenny Pickett have to beat you. Then you unleash Nick Bosa, and you get after him. We're not sure what Bosa's numbers are going to be today in terms of how much he's going to play. I think that's partly, I think that a little bit of an indication of that is that Austin Bryant was elevated to the active roster for the game. But you look at it with Bosa, Hargrave, Eric Armstead. I think Eric Armstead is a guy. Those two inside give you a real formidable duo in the pass rushing game up inside. Nick Bosa over on the edge. We haven't seen that at all because he hasn't been around. So how does that impact what those two guys inside are going to see in terms of doubles and those types of things? Can Eric Armstead, can Javon Hargrave beat the one-on-one opportunities? Can Drake Jackson or Clown Furl on the other side beat those one-on-one opportunities? I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I really think, and I believe that Eric Armstead is the 49ers' second best defensive lineman. Nick Bosa puts up the numbers. He's obviously the best. That's why he's getting paid the money that he is. That's why he was named the Defensive Player of the Year last year. Eric Armstead, you look at his numbers, he was hurt a lot last year, so that's a big piece of it. He's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career. When he's been healthy, he was really good, and last year he was really good. You look at his numbers, they don't show up, but his impact on the defense doesn't show up in his numbers. But there were two of the 3 interceptions last year that Jimmy Ward was able to get during the regular season were a direct result of Eric Armstead. After he came back from his injury over the back half of the season, Eric Armstead putting pressure on the quarterback, forcing the ball to come out earlier than they wanted to. And that's where those interceptions for Jimmy Ward came. So Eric Armstead, a guy who doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but a guy who I think is a big piece of this 49ers puzzle. And I look for him to have a good day today. I think they need a big day from all those guys around. Randall making a really good point over here. He says the Steelers' tackles are average at best. The bear is coming. That is something that you look at the numbers, they are not very good on the edge. So that can be a problem. Last year, you look at week 1 to last year, that game started out with a lot of pressure from the 49ers against Justin Fields. Things kind of slowed down. So we'll see. I do think you look at that, and that's a really good point there. Just looking through the comments really quick. D'Angelo Evans says, I'm out here in Pittsburgh. It rained heavily in the morning hours. It's clear now. That's correct. It is. From everything that I've seen, I'm not in Pittsburgh, obviously. That's why you see the sun behind me. But from what I understand, there was rain. That seems to have cleared out. It looks like it's going to be a nice, clear day for the 49ers today. Diego Martinez wants to know if Jake Moody is active. Absolutely. Jake Moody is the only kicker on the 49ers active roster, or on the 49ers roster, period. The team yesterday releasing kicker Matthew Wright. So it is Jake Moody. He's going to be making all the kicks today. So let's see how it goes. And then for my prediction, I'm predicting I'm changing my numbers up a little bit from what I had when I spoke with Larry. It's very close, a little bit different. My prediction for this game: 49ers 23, Steelers 20. I mentioned earlier about how the offense has averaged only 16.7 points per game under Kyle Shanahan in week 1. And, kind of going back and replaying those games in my mind, 2017, yeah, that's Brian Hoyer. Okay. 2018, Jimmy Garoppolo out in Minnesota. Garoppolo with a couple of turnovers, just didn't play very well in that game. Quarterback missing some opportunities there. 2019, he played okay, but he had a big pick down in the red zone that cost the 49ers points. 2020, kind of a similar thing where they were good, but he struggled at times. He didn't make all the plays that were there to be made. 2021, he did. They're playing a team that was much weaker than the Steelers. They moved up and down the field throughout that game, blew them out. And then 2022, last year in Chicago, we all know what happened there. You get a fumble from Deebo Samuel, takes points off the board. You get a miss on a throw to a tight end that's open, and then a sack, which takes you out of field goal range. So those two possessions, you get no points, and you should have had points on both of them. And then you go to the third quarter, you're in the red zone, you have a guy open in the end zone, the quarterback doesn't throw it and get sacked instead. Instead of getting a touchdown there, you get field goal. So, that's about, they scored 10 last year. I think they gave up at least 13 points between the fumble, the missed throw to the tight end, not taking the touchdown throw to Juwan Jennings. So that's where I'm coming up with 23 from the 49ers. I do think they're going to find success against the Steelers. I do think they're going to be able to move the ball offensively. I'm also giving the Steelers 20 because I do think they're going to move the ball. I don't think this is a game where the 49ers are going to just dominate. I do think this is going to be a tough matchup for the 49ers. Pittsburgh, a very solid, strong squad. A lot of, you look at the Steelers and you look at the quarterback with Kenny Pickett, you look at all those things. And one of the biggest things I'd say is the Steelers were a team that were really nice. They were a good team last year. They were solid. They did not have TJ Watt for a long portion of the season. When he was active, when he was able to play, they were much better. And then on top of that, they were, I think, just a game out of making the playoffs in the AFC. So the Steelers are a tough team. I think the 49ers, again, I'm going to just go back through it. I think offensively, I think this is a game that comes down to really going to come down to Brock Purdy, his ability to get the ball out quickly, to handle that pressure, help from that offensive line in terms of keeping the TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cameron Hayward off of Purdy as well. There's a little bit of a yin and yang with those two. And then, the offensive line generating some running room for, for Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason. I think the Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell trio, you can't overlook that really, because having Elijah Mitchell back there with Christian McCaffrey really gives you a nice 1-2 punch. And then you get Mason coming in too every once in a while. That's a really nice group. So it's going to be a big game for Purdy, I think, today. They're going to have to lean on him, get that run game going a little bit, and then get after Kenny Pickett. Slow that run game down, make Pickett have to beat you. And I think if you do that pass rush of the 49ers can get home and do a better job. Pickett's a really nice player. One worry that I have here is that the Steelers just have a lot of weapons. They can stretch you all over the field. And that's reminds me a little bit of the Las Vegas Raiders last year, that ability to stretch you vertically and horizontally, really stretch out your defense. That's a concern that I have in this game. So George Pickens in particular, his ability to get vertical, the Steelers will just throw up some balls to him to give him shots. And I'm interested to see how Charvarius Ward handles that, because Charvarius Ward didn't handle it very well last year in the postseason against a player similar to George Pickens. And we know that he's been dealing with a little bit of a heel injury. That's why he was questionable coming into today. So this is an interesting matchup. I have the 49ers winning, though, 23-20. Start off the season 1-0, and we'll see how it goes. Piff Daddy 420 wants to know, Jack, who has the better D-line, 49ers or Pittsburgh? Honestly, the better defensive line when it comes to rushing the passer. If you look at the numbers from last year, it's the Steelers with Watt, Highsmith, Hayward. But at the same time, if you can it's a little bit different. The 49ers don't have the edge guys. The 49ers are better on the interior. When you have Hargrave and Armstead, those two guys working together can be a real problem, especially when you have Bosa on the edge. So I do think Bosa on the edge is going to create opportunities for these other two inside. I think that's where the difference can come from, is because those three working together. And then the fourth guy, whether it's Furl or Drake Jackson, is more of a cleanup type of guy. So we'll see. Like I said, the difference is that we haven't seen this defensive line work together for the 49ers, really. It just hasn't been on the field altogether. Nick Bosa hasn't been around throughout the preseason, so we haven't seen his impact on what can happen with Hargrave and Armstead inside. So there's questions there. I can understand why 49er fans are saying that would argue against what I just said, and I can argue against myself as well, as I kind of just did. But we'll see how this works out. And like Randall's pointed out a couple of times on this show, the Pittsburgh Steelers tackles are not good. They're good, but not good in terms of pass blocking. And that could be an advantage a little bit today, especially with Nick Bosa on one side. So there you have it. Take it for what it's worth. This game is going to be kicking off in just over a half an hour. 49ers, Pittsburgh Steelers, week 1 at Acrisure Stadium out in Pittsburgh. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hey, like I always say, take it for what it's worth. If you guys can do me a favor, please hit that like button on your way out. After you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the updates right here on Inside the 49ers. I will be back after the game, not right after, but pretty close. We'll do a breakdown. We'll go through the answers to the keys that I put out. We'll go through the game. We'll get an instant reaction out there for you guys. So keep it locked in. Make sure you have your notifications on so you know when we go live. And as Rafael always likes to say, like and subscribe, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the game. Like I said, we'll be back afterwards. Take care, everybody.